let's make a procedure. Let's create some tables. First, we're gonna create our first table. Next, we're going to enter data into our table. And finally, we're going to view the data in the table. To start creating our tables, we need to navigate to the ABAP dictionary. So we go to transaction SE11. Inside the ABAP dictionary, we select database table and we type the name of our table. Remember to always start with the letter Z. Then I like using the letter T because to tell the system or to remind myself, that this is going to be a table. So I use T and then underscore and then a table description. Let's create a table to store the information of the passengers for a flight. So let's call it passengers. ZT passengers. And then we click on create. The system gives us a warning that the underscore is not permitted at the second or the third position. So let's modify this. So let's put ZTA, that means table underscore passengers. Now we click on create, and now the system permits us to create our table. So this is going to be table for passengers. Now we need to complete all the mandatory fields on the screen. We can identify the mandatory fields because they have that little checkbox with that it is checked all the time. So we complete this obligatory field, the delivery class. We have a lot of options here. We're going to choose an application table. We are not creating a customizing table or a system table. This is just an application table, a table to store all the information for the passengers that we are going to use in our ABAP programs. Then the fields. We need to complete all the fields and create the primary keys. So to create a table, we start with the fields. It is important that you always include the man_dt field in your tables. Later on, I'm gonna explain why do you have to include this field. For right now, please include it as I included. We tell it it's always a key field. The initial values, we also check this for this field, and the data element for the man_t field is also man_t. And we click enter, and this is a data type of 3 characters. Now our primary key will be the passenger's ID. So it's gonna be passenger underscore ID. It's gonna be a primary key, initial values, and we need to create a data element for our passenger ID. Let's make it a character type with 8 positions. So let's create our data element. So let's use Z, D for data, E for element, underscore, and this is the passenger ID data element, passenger ID. We enter, and the system tells us it is not active because it doesn't exist. So we double click on it. Yes, I want to save on my ABAP course, on my change request, and yes, I want to create my data element. This is the data element for passenger ID. I need to create my domain for my data element. So I create a Z domain, ZD for domain O underscore passenger underscore ID. It's not active because it doesn't exist, so I double click and the system always prompts for creation. Yes, I want to create my domain in my same package and in my same request. Yes, create my domain. And this is domain for passenger ID. The data type I want it to be character. So I select a character string and I want 8 positions, limited to 8 positions. And I activate my domain. Now it is active. So I go back to my data element and I need to activate this also, but first I need to complete the field labels. These are going to be the labels that our table is going to use to present our data. So I'm gonna complete the length here to 5. I always use an interval of 5. You can use an interval of 10 or however you want. I'm gonna use 30 here and 40 for the heading. ID for a short field label. ID also for a medium, and passenger ID when it's a long or 30 length character field that is going to show in the screen. And now I activate also my data element. I go back and now I have my field passenger ID. It's a primary field or a key field using the data element passenger ID that is type character of 8 positions. The short description, as you can see, is the data element for passenger ID. I'm gonna use the I'm gonna add another field. Let's add the passenger name. This is not going to be a key field. We can create another data element, or we can use SAP standard data elements. So let's use a SAP standard data element. For example, the name I wanted to be a character type with 50 available positions. So I'm gonna use a car 50 data element. I press enter and the system automatically displays the type for the field. So the name is, now let's make another last name, also the same type data element, car 50, and the birth date. This is going to be a date type, so we use the SAP standard DATS. This is type DATS of 8 positions. Now we save our table and it is saved. We need to select some technical settings for our transparent table. This is always a mandatory step when you create a transparent table. So we click on technical settings and we need to tell the system the data class. So we browse and this is a table that is going to maintain the master data. It's going to be a transparent table. We select master data. The size category is the numbers of data records of the table expected. Since this is, we assume this is going to be a really big airline, and we are going to have millions of passengers, we select approximately, this is 5 million. I think this is a lot. I think the category 5 will be okay. And we save the technical settings. And now we go back. And now we are ready to save and activate our table. In order to introduce values to this table, we need to create a table maintenance generator. This is the only way to input some values into our tables. So to create an input, a maintenance table generator, first we need to tell the system that maintenance is allowed for this table. Now that we selected this option, we can save and activate our first created table. We click on activate. The system now is working. Some warnings occur, so I want to display them. Yes, let's take a look at the warnings. The enhancement category is missing. Okay, these are just warnings, so everything is okay now. And our table is active now. So we can use our table in our ABAP programs. We can create variables and use these fields to create variable types also. Now let's take a look of the data model for our table. Since this is our first table, we don't have really any relations with this table. So let's click on the icon graphic. The system presents to us our recently created table and the relations if this table had any foreign keys from another table. But in this case, we don't have it. So now let's try to input some values to our table. Remember that I told you that in order for you to be allowed to input some data into your table, you need to tell the system that maintenance is allowed on this table.